Next is implementing disaster drills in a GIS for disaster management course. This is Dr. Akam Paya and Kathy Duncan. They're with Dr. Paya is with the Associate Research with the Center for Geographic Analysis at NC State, go Wolfpack. And Kathy Duncan, who is a lead instructor.
Instructional designer, that's
Instructor
right.
designer with NC State Distance Education and Learning Technologies Applications. I'll turn it over to you guys.
All right. Can everybody hear me?
And testing with the tech. I'm on a mic too. I'm hoping they're picking us up.
Welcome everybody. Today we are going to be talking about the class that we taught last semester called GIS for Disaster Management and how we implemented a disaster drill as a part of this class. First, we're going to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to talk about the details of the class and how we approached it and what we taught and what included and how we ran it. And then we're going to go into the simulated drill that we ran. So we're going to give you guys the why, what, and how of it. And then after that, we're going to talk about a little bit of the experiment that we ran with this drill. And then we're going to end with our reflections. And we're leaving the question and answers to the very end of the session. So, and anytime, if you have a specific question while we're talking, please feel free to stop us and interject. So my name is Okam Pala. I'm a research associate and the instructor at the Center for Geospatial Analytics at North Carolina State University.
And I'm Kathy Dunnigan. I'm a lead instructional designer with Distance Education and Learning Technology Applications at NC State.
All right. So like I said, we taught this class last semester. I was the main instructor for it. It's called Spatial Concepts for Disaster Management. I called it that because I didn't want to call GIS for disaster management because there's like 100 classes called GIS for X, GIS for Y. So, and also we were talking about a lot of the concepts that relates to disaster management. So, I called the class that. And as a part of this class, we included 10 students, and seven of them were online students, and 3 of them were in-class students. And the focus was Master of GIS and Master of Geographic Information Science and Technology students, which is a program that we have at NC State. It's like a master's degree program, and also we targeted Master of Science students as a part of this. And it's also before the students took the class, we wanted to make sure that they have enough GIS background so they could follow through with all the homeworks and all they have to do. So we made sure that they took at least 2 GIS classes, and then they at least had like a year or 2 of experience using GIS. As a part of this class, we actually go through the different 4 steps of disaster management, and then we talked about the various tools that people use for disaster management and emergency management. We talked about networks like critical infrastructure networks and emergency routes and how you use the network analysis, various network analysis tools, and fire GIS and various other things. So like I said, we had online and in-class students, and we recorded everything when we were teaching the class. So all the lectures and all the discussion sessions and question and answer sessions and paper presentations, everything was recorded and made it available online the same day or next day to students. And they had about a week or 10 days to watch it, and we tracked if they watched it or not. And that was part of their grade. But if they were present in the classroom at the time, or if they joined in online live, then they didn't have to go back and watch it again. So also as a part of this class, we invited some external speakers from the industry, from federal government. We even included some open source GIS talks as a part of this class. So we wanted to give the students a wide variety of information that they could use once they go out in the field and use in the disaster management field. And the classwork included some homeworks, like they did a lot of modules with HAZUS MH. Who's familiar with HAZUS? Okay, a lot of people. Good. I actually meant to ask, who in this room works or worked in disaster management or emergency management field? Okay, we have about, I don't know, maybe 10 people out of 35. Good. So you'll know what I'm talking about when we got to the drill part later on. So I also wanted the students to give a little bit of a glimpse of what's going on in the academic world, because that's where we are working on the next thing coming up. So I asked them to read some academic papers and summarize it, and then present it to their present to other students. And at the end of the semester, they also did a term project, which they had to come up with a scenario with all the details, following the guidelines from Department of Homeland Security. And then they actually had to find all the data that goes with it, perform some analysis, and then put together a communication tool like an online map or a story map. And preferably, we wanted the online tool to include some analysis portion as well. But what we're going to talk about today is the disaster drill that we ran as an exam. So I didn't really want to do an exam as a part of this class, like a written down exam, and I wanted to be a little more on hand. So I figured what better way to do a hands-on exercise and put them in the real world situation than to do that. So that's what we decided to do. And I also wanted to do research with the students. So implementing something like that would give me a opportunity to implement some research and answer some research question. And then also I figured by doing this hands-on exercise, students would be engaged in more applied active learning. So that's where Kathy comes in the picture.
Great. So Okan, I'm going to step out here so you can see me a little bit. Okan applied for a grant. So we use an acronym DELTA for Distance Education Learning Technology Applications. I think you can figure out why. So when I say DELTA, we're talking about NC State. We run a grant program each year, and we work with about 15 to 20 faculty who bring us instructional challenges, some wicked problem that they need to do in an online environment. Okan brought us this disaster drill with online students. So it's an exploratory grant. I brought in a team that included me as instructional designer and project lead, a project coordinator to keep us on schedule, a new media specialist, and a programmer. So working with Okan as our subject matter expert, we move forward with doing some research into what do we want to do with these students, a hands-on, real-world experience. We first talked about tabletop exercises, and we discovered in our research that that's pretty much experts sitting around the table talking. And while that's a good experience for students, we wanted more hands-on map-making skills. So we looked at disaster drills. And those disaster drills required actual action. You actually have a disaster real time. You have a team working through a disaster as if it's happening. Well, we had a constraint of a 3-hour midterm exam time. So we need to constrain it a little bit more. So we decided to go with a simulated disaster drill where the students would take on the role of the GIS team in a disaster. All right? So for our implementation, we gave them a pre-drill announcement. Now, Okan did not tell them they were coming in to be part of a GIS team in a disaster situation. He said they're coming in for a midterm exam with exams.
Believe me, they were surprised.
No preparation. But that was part of it. This had to be a real-world experience. Something happens, you got to react, right? So we had the 2 teams of 4 students that were in class. So those were the 3 that were registered to be in the class, plus one of the online students opted to come in and do it a face-to-face experience. The other night were 3 students fully online. So we got to observe 2 different situations with these students. All had completed their reading and hands-on assignments. Yeah, they did. So that they were prepared with the software that they would be using. And I'll let Okan talk about how
Yeah, so once we get the students, in the classroom, we gave them the track of the hurricane that we wanted them to work on. But once they walked in, they had no idea what they were going to do. They knew there were going to be some quizzes, and they had to do some hands-on work. And they brought their own computers, and we made sure that all the appropriate recording stuff was, installed ahead of time. So to get ready for it, we actually downloaded all the data required for the specific hurricane that we were going to implement and give them as the real life exercise. And we got it from NOAA's website and various other websites that we found, like various data sources. And we actually let them use ArcGIS online, and they could use the HASIS MH or the install there on their computer. And also they did some online communication as well.
Right. So they used WebEx as the communication tool. They've been using that throughout the semester because those online students were coming into a live session via WebEx. So it was a familiar technology. This is not new technology. We wanted to minimize those tech issues as they came into this environment.
So, go ahead.
So the scenario we gave them, as I said, they walked in and it's like, you are the GIS team. You are members for an EOC located in Florida. Hurricane Matthews is 3 days before landfall. Now this happened in October, just after Hurricane Matthew had hit North Carolina. So it was a familiar experience that everyone had gone through, but we were putting them back before it happened, and we situated them in Florida so that they were using data that they may or may, would not have been familiar with if they were working in North Carolina.
Right. We ran this on October 8th and 9th on 2 different sessions for online and in-class students, but we gave them the data for October 3rd and 6th, where the current location of the hurricane was.
So real-world data.
Yeah.
We gave them the location, including the floor plan you see here, so that they would have an idea of where they would be situated. And they took on the GIS team roles as identified: the production manager, an analyst communication specialist, a data resources specialist, and a map production specialist. And all team members were required to participate in analysis, so at no time should they be sitting idle.
Right. So,
Begin.
right, and then we basically, they came in and sat down, and we, after we gave them the pre-drill questionnaire and everything, we basically gave them the hurricane path that we got from NOAA's website on October 3rd. So it was like they were sitting in the room on October 3rd and looking at a hurricane track. And we want them to pretend that they're part of EOC. They're helping externally for EOC to achieve some tasks. So after we gave them the data and told them about the situation, told them that they're helping a real EOC with some tasks, and then they talked about the situation a little bit among themselves. And after that, we gave them a quiz. So they have the hurricane track, they know where it is and where it's going. And then based on that current situation, they had to do this quiz. It was a 15-minute long thing. So using that, they had to, answer questions, which websites would they have to go to find certain data, or, what international organizations they would ask for help and things like that. So like data resources for help, and they also answered some what-if questions. What if this happened at this moment? What would you do, kind of thing. So after they took the quiz, we gave them we let them discuss among themselves, how they would approach, how would they work together and move forward from that point on. So with the first interject, like I said, it was October 3rd. This was the 3 days before that the hurricane was projected to be around the bottom tip of Florida Panhandle, and at this point we basically started giving them tasks, but as if we were getting them from outside. So I was playing a role of a emergency manager kind of person. And then we basically pretended that I didn't really know too much about GIS. I kind of thought it was, map making tool, and then I was kind of demanding things, very demanding, but not really knowledgeable role, to make it interesting for students, not necessarily real life, in all the situations. So things like they had to, figure out things like, what are the counties based on the current trajectory of the hurricane? What are the counties that would get affected, and what are the possible evacuation routes that they would have to use, and where the hazardous materials would be located, and things like that. And they had to use also HASIS to calculate some stuff like direct economic loss and things like that.
So here we see, this is the online team. In the lower right-hand corner, you see that the team members can see each other through WebEx. They actually can communicate with each other and talk. They're live, they're synchronous. They have the shared map where they're posting their maps as they develop them. So this keeps changing. Here on this one, you see that they have already identified the counties in Florida that may be impacted by a coming storm. And here we are. So here we have the liaison to all of those decision makers who have to happen, and he is no longer the professor. He is encouraging them and driving them, asking for things as they're in a very rapid fire approach, so that they would be under stress, so that they would have the feeling of being in a fast-paced real-world experience with a disaster. I'm doing observations, and a grad assistant who helped with the data is sitting in as well.
Right. So also to put the students in like a real-world situation, we basically gave them like a newspaper articles that we found online, and saying that, oh, this news just came up on Greenville Online website kind of thing. And also we got some videos that was posted online by various individuals, and showed that, showing the waters rising and winds come in, and to put the students in situation as if they are watching the news media on the big screen while they're working on their tasks. So at this point, we gave them the second energetic. So 3 days forward, now it's October 6th, and the hurricane trajectory, you guys might remember how it was originally planned to go off, and then it kind of veered in to actually brush the Florida Panhandle. And then we gave them the hurricane track again, and let them talk among themselves. And then after that, we gave them another quiz. It was again 15 minutes. And after they took the quiz, and they also sit back down and discuss among themselves how they're going to approach the next phase. So at this part, basically, we started piling on the requests for various products that they came in, like produce a map for X and Y, like a forestry damage and shelter locations and things like that. And we also asked them to do some analysis, create reports using, a lot of time they ended up using Hazas MH to do some of that. And then we asked them to use some functional curve panels and expected wind speed information to provide information like the probabilities of a single family housing getting damaged and things like that. So they had to work among themselves to kind of find data, do analysis, and provide reports and submit those on the fly, and also create maps that reflected the common operating picture. So
here they are. This is the face-to-face live classroom. You can see they're all working together. They are heads down on their computers, but they're also looking at the map. They are able to talk with each other. And didn't bring my clicker. As they're working through, you can see that they're updating the map on the wall. Here's the very disgruntled manager of the EOC saying, oh, get it to me faster, get it to me faster. So they're getting up, they're communicating. Eric is the project lead on the team, and so he is actually looking at others' computers, keeping everybody on task, moving forward. They're engaging in conversation and very rapidly responding to the situation.
Right. And we, like I said, we piled them on. We would give them 3 tasks, and then before they were done with those tasks, before they were not even closed, we'd give them 3 more. And before, they were barely finished with the first round, we would give them 3 more, kind of pile on, saying that, hey, we need this right now. The county commissioner just called. He wants this list right away because he has to send it to the fire chief. Please get it done right away. So we kind of actually pressured them quite a bit. And at some point, I was afraid that they might sue me. So at this point, after they were all done, we were 2.5 hours in, and they didn't finish all of it, but we kind of, once we hit the 2.5, we said stop. We actually originally planned to do a third interject with we were going to give him a tornado track, starting from the northwest Orlando going towards Daytona Beach, and we're going to tell them that there was a high occupancy event going on, like a Coca-Cola 500. Or a spring break or whatever, or fall break, and then kind of let them work on some evacuation and things like that. But we didn't even get there, and we didn't get to run the third track because we still had to do the post-drill surveys and things like that.
So this is our experimental setup. That was the drill. We did the pre-drill survey so that we could have students reflect on project what they thought they might be able to do, what they expected of the drill before it happened. We had them do screen capture of each of their laptops so that we could review afterwards what they did during the session, during the drill. That was using MediaSite software that we have at NC State to do screen capture video. We planned for the 3 quizzes, completed 2 during the drill. Students don't like to define acronyms, we found out. And then we did the post-drill survey following the drill, and we did the post-drill debrief right then, right after they had finished. All of that adrenaline in their systems, and they really wanted to talk about what the experience was like. And we captured that then, and the screen captured videos then they shared up through Velocity because of the large file size. So in the survey, what we found is that students following the drill, when we looked at pre and post, said that they felt more ready to participate in an EOC team, as a team member, which was awesome. That's what we had hoped would happen. Their data acquisitioning skills they felt had improved. They felt confident. They thought it would be good, but it was actually better than they expected. However, they found out that spatial analysis and creating maps based on spatial analysis, not so much. So they were able to see this early in the semester in October, that they had skills that they still needed to work on going forward. So that was also a good thing. But overall, the students' interpersonal communication skills in a team environment, higher than they expected, and had high confidence in that.
So we also gave them as a part of this questionnaire, we gave them a list of 21 concepts that relates to disaster management, and we asked them to rate these as top 7, like 1, 2, 3, 4. What's your top priority if you were to choose number 1, number 2 out of this 21? And we asked them to rank those concepts 1 to 7. And then we asked them to do the same thing after they did the drill. So we have a pre-drill and post-drill. And on this graph, you'll see the pre-drill as the blue, and then the post-drill as the orange. But the numbers will be, since the highest ranked one is ranked as number 1, the lower means that they feel they think that it's more important. So the lower is more important, higher is less important in this chart. So looking at this, we were like trying to figure out what we can find out about this. So here you see that this basically confidence level dropped on this one pre to post, like the things like resource and services and things like the WOAB management, crowdsourced data, and population clusters and damage assessment. They thought it was more important before, and they didn't think it was as important later on, because they probably didn't have to use any crowdsourced data, and they didn't have to do specific WOAB management, things like that. So they probably were not as exposed to it. So that's how they marked this later on as less important. But they thought communications were more important later on. After the drill, communications came out in the picture more. And also they thought things like debris management and disaster housing were more important because they were, they got a little bit exposed to it during it. So I just realized I was not talking into microphone, and I apologize. And they're looking at me, they're like, "Oh, you left the microphone." Okay. And I apologize to the people who are listening to this later. So that's some of the findings that we had.
So then we had qualitative reflection from the students as part of that pre and post-drill survey. They wanted to project. We asked them to project how they would perform, and then we actually had them talk about what happened. What was it really like? So in their expectations, half said, "Yeah, that's what I expected." Half, "Yeah, this was really hard." Their difficulties were the time constraints. It was fast-paced. They had some software, hardware malfunctions, good real-world experience. They had difficulty locating data. So all of this showed what they needed to learn, which makes it a very good learning experience for them. They realized that they needed to step back and analyze before jumping in and starting to produce things individually. They had to work as a team. That was what their overall experience turned out to be, was that it was a good experience working as a team in an intense, fast-paced, stressful environment, but definitely real world.
Right. And also, like Kathy said, we thought that most of the students thought this was a good experience for them, and through this we were able to get them intrigued and challenged at the same time. So at the end, but they were exhausted, and we were exhausted too. So it was a 3-hour stressful situation. And I told them, imagine this being 12-hour shifts, and you have to do day after day after day. But we also learned that the importance of getting your ducks in a row ahead of time. So ideally, in a real-life EOC situation, you would have all your data sources and all your scripts and tools ready to go ahead of time. Ideally, I've talked to many people who work in this field, and I was told that it's not always the case. But we learned the importance of that, and I think that's a valuable finding of this class that students got out of this class. And also, we learned that we have to get everything ready ahead of time as people running this, and also using this. Since this was an exploratory experiment, we tried to figure out some research questions. What are the issues that come up in this kind of a real life working situation? How people, if the people are in the same room, how they work differently than the people if everybody was online, communicating online, or if half the people were here, half the people were online, couldn't make it to EOC, how it would work, things like that. And what are the tools that they could use to collaborate and work together better? So, in the future, we are planning to do, first thing that we are doing right now is actually creating a playbook. And then, so if you were to want to implement something like this, you could take this playbook, put in your own data and put in your own information on there, and then you wouldn't have to recreate the wheel, or reinvent the wheel. And we are also creating some media templates that you can actually, it would be generic, like a hurricane, some reporter talking into the microphone, but you could put your own titles underneath to kind of go with your own situation. And we are planning to run this again in the spring. Later this semester or towards in the summer. So we're going to be doing an earthquake scenario. So if you're interested in collaborating with us on this or become one of the participants, please feel free to come talk to us after this presentation or after this session. So here's our information.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about NC State's Delta, please feel free to contact me. Happy to share our projects.
Thank you.